Hi, I'm Chris from TUOTEG. Today, we're going to talk about how to put together your TUOTEG cruiser bike. I love it when we're cruising together. First things first, opening your Christmas present. Now, if you fancy yourself a tough person, you might just want to rah! And rip open all this cardboard. But for the patient ones in the bunch, needle nose pliers, use those to pop out your staples. Now the reveal. You got a couple flaps to open, and then a piece of foam to dramatically discard, and you'll see your bike. Getting it out of the box. Now e-bikes are a little bit heavier than your typical bike because of the motor size, and the battery is pretty heavy. So you can try to be a hero and this thing out of the box yourself, or you can enlist someone that is bigger and stronger and more burly than yourself to help you out. Mostly just to stabilize the box. Yeah. Thank you. Don't forget to grab your parts box. Now that we've got the bike out, we're gonna get all these zip ties cut, get all this packing material off of there so we can get started. You can use your scissors for this. I really like myself some cable cuts, side cuts, cable cutters, whatever you decide you want to call them today. First thing I'm going to do is get all the cable ties off my front wheel. So I got my cable ties cut, front wheel and fender. I'm going to take these things and set them to the side. Your parts box has lots of important things in it, like your saddle, seat post, some axle covers for your front wheel, your pedals, kickstand, as well as your owner's manual, reflectors, and the charger for your battery. Now that we've got all of our packing material removed and the bubble wrap removed and the zip ties removed and all that stuff, we're going to focus on installing our front wheel. Now your front wheel ships with the fender nested inside. So the first thing we're going to do is attach this fender. So for installing the fender, we're going to install it at the fork crown. There's already a bolt mounted in your fork crown, so you just got to remove that. We put the fork tab on the fork crown and then reinstall this bolt. You can snug that down with a Phillips screwdriver or a 10mm box wrench. So we're going to get that installed and kind of push it up as high as it goes so we have plenty of room to work around it to get the front wheel installed. Next, installing the front wheel. The Cruiser ships with a dummy axle in the fork. Really that's just to protect the fork tines as it ships. These can just be finger loosened. You can pull that axle off and discard of it. Then we'll grab your wheel. Your wheel ships with these hub axle protectors, so we can remove those. And then we can loosen the axle nuts, so we have plenty of room to work. Couple things to note here. You have a disc rotor already installed, so you want to make sure that goes on the correct side. You also have a safety washer here that has a little hook on it. We want to make sure that that goes into the right location on the fork crown. Okay, so we are installing the front wheel. We're making sure that the safety washers are outside of the fork, making sure that the disc rotor goes inside the disc caliper. So because we have our fender on here, that fender bracket actually installs on our front hub axle. So first thing we want to do is make sure our safety washer is in its appropriate location there. Then we'll take our fender bracket and put it on the axle, and then we'll reinstall our axle nut. Then when you've got everything in place, you can tighten that down with a 15mm box wrench. Your Cruiser also comes with these plastic axle covers, and so these just install right over your axle nuts. Now I'll turn the bike around and show you how to put on the kickstand. Now before you put your kickstand on, it might be helpful to lean your bike against a wall, or you can call back your hired muscle. Your kickstand ships with the bolts already installed, so you want to remove those. And unlike most kickstands, this one actually mounts to a kickstand plate on your non-drive side chainstay. So the kickstand itself goes inside the plate, and then your bolt threads in from the outside. Take my 5mm hex wrench. Next I'm going to get out my torque wrench. Now this torque wrench, essentially you preset it to the torque setting you want, and then it'll give you a nice click when it's tight enough. You can pick these up at any hardware store. For these bolts, we want to tighten them to 8 or 9 foot-pounds, which equals about 11 Newton-meters. Your kickstand also has height adjustment on it. So if you want your kickstand to be longer or shorter, all you have to do is loosen this bolt right here with a 4mm hex wrench. Now I'll turn it around and we'll get your handlebars installed. Let's install these handlebars. First, we have to remove the faceplate off your stem. To do that, I'm going to use a 4mm hex wrench. I'm going to loosen up all these bolts. I'm actually going to take this faceplate all the way off. Okay, then we can install our handlebars. When you tighten these bolts back down, you want to kind of alternate in an X-shaped pattern, how you're tightening it down. Essentially, you just want to make sure that the whole faceplate is clamping evenly. Now as I go along here, the closer I get to getting tight is when I'm going to start employing that X pattern. So I'm going to do this bolt and go across, do this bolt, and the bottom left bolt there. What I'm doing here is just making sure that this faceplate is clamping down evenly. I'm not over torqued on any one of these bolts. When it starts to feel tight, I'm going to get my torque wrench back out. So I'm going to get out my torque wrench again for my stem faceplate bolts. Each one of these can go to 4 foot-pounds or 5 Newton-meters. And again, I'm going to employ that X-shaped pattern, doing one bolt at a time. Good. Okay, so you might be looking at this and saying, hey Chris, your handlebar setup looks a little funky there. It looks a little off kilter. Well, we'll do that next. So, helps to secure the front wheel between your legs. Keeps the bike upright, keeps the wheel in place. And then we're going to straighten our handlebars. And we want our handlebar stem to be in line with the rear wheel, to be in line with the front wheel. We want all this to be straight. Once we get it there, we'll tighten our steer tube clamp bolts. And again, I'm going to go get out my torque wrench. These bolts I can tighten to 15 foot-pounds or about 20 Newton-meters. And again, I'm going to alternate going each side so that I make sure this clamp is clamping evenly. Now our Cruiser has a unique feature that not all bikes have, and that's an adjustable angle stem. So on the non-drive side over here, you'll see a little bolt that I can use a 6mm hex wrench to loosen up. And once it's loose, I can adjust that handlebar set up and down. So that's helpful for getting a custom fit, making sure you are as comfortable as you can be. Some people prefer it to be a little bit more upright. And when you have it in the position you want, you just tighten her back down. The next thing we're going to do here is install your saddle and your seat post. Your seat post is this thing that you pulled out of your parts box. You'll notice that it has a minimum insertion marking on it. You just want to make sure that it's not extended past that mark. Before we put that in, we're going to grease our seat tube. Any kind of general all-purpose bicycle grease will do. You can use a brush to put this on, or a popsicle stick. I've got my special black greasing glove. I'm just a nickel-sized dollop and spread that around the inside of the seat tube to make sure your seat post can spin freely in there. Install the seat post. And then we can put on your seat. Now, you're going to want your saddle to be approximately parallel to the ground. So this comes with 2 nuts, both use a 13mm box wrench. We'll use that to loosen these up a little bit, and then we can adjust that angle of our saddle. Then to tighten down, I'm going to alternate each side. So that clamp is clamping evenly. Now a good way to check and see if you've got this tight enough is to try to rock that saddle back and forth or try to twist it. That'll tell you that your seat post is tight enough and your saddle clamps are secure. Last but not least, we're going to install your pedals. Now, this is an area of confusion for a lot of folks because your left side pedal is not righty-tighty. It's lefty-tighty, and that's not normal. It's left-hand threaded, it's counterclockwise threaded, however you want to say it. But it's important to note, when you're looking at these pedals, there's a little R for the right pedal, a little L for the left pedal. You want to make sure that the right pedal is going on the right side of the bike as you're sitting on the bike, you know? So this is the right side, left pedal goes on the left side. These pedals can also use a little dollop of grease. Right pedal and the right crank arm. You can get this finger tightened as far as you want to go. And I'll also get the left one started here. Now this thing is not a medieval weapon. It's a pedal wrench, even though it looks very intimidating. You can, if you got one of these sitting around, great. If not, a 15mm box wrench will do the trick. Cool trick. Pedaling backwards is kind of the same as screwing it in on either side. But again, remember, your left side pedal is left-hand threaded, reverse threaded, lefty-tighty. So now you're all assembled and you're ready to go for a ride. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions on the assembly process, any bike maintenance questions, or you just want to chat about puppies and kittens, don't hesitate to shoot us an email, support@tuoteg.com.